Tatum is hurt. Tatum is down. He wants a timeout. Tatum in so much pain.
This sucks. Like, a lot. The fourth quarter of Game 4, Jayson Tatum made a dive for the ball. In an effort to pivot and make a step at the rock, his right foot slipped slightly. That small, miniature slip, a seemingly insignificant misstep by a 6'9" light-skinned Jayson Tatum, may result in a shockwave that could extend across the entirety of the National Basketball Association. Watching that injury happen in real time was really bad. I'm a Knicks fan, if you guys aren't aware, and was completely dialed in throughout the entirety of the series. The Game 1 into heroics, the Game 3 blowout, and sitting right in my chair as Jayson Tatum writhed in absolute agony after he most likely tore his Achilles. Really bad, especially for the Celtics. Their season is already most likely over with Tatum out, but going into this offseason, there are major changes and massive shakeups the Celtics might have that could potentially rewrite the current structure of the NBA. Even before the Jayson Tatum injury, going into the offseason, the Celtics already had some decisions to make. With new ownership and the expressed desire to cut costs, it was assumed that one of the Celtics' core players would be let go in an effort to save money. The plan was probably going to consist of letting Drew or Kristaps go and allowing the farm system they have going to replace them. With how badly they performed against the Knicks, and how awful Jaylen Brown has played in this series thus far, and how desperate they are to clear money, we might see a complete overhaul of this roster. Jayson Tatum's Supermax contract is just now kicking in after the season. His salary is jumping up from $30 million to $50 million, and with this contract backloaded, it will balloon all the way to $70 million by the time his deal is up. Jrue Holiday, who's entering his age 35 season, is getting paid $30 million up to 2028. And with KP also getting $30 million, the money is tight as hell, and the Celtics have zero flexibility. This wasn't an issue. Before. This wasn't an issue before, when the Celtics were considered absolutely flawless and possibly en route to a back-to-back NBA championship. When you're deadlocked into a roster, and it's a championship-worthy roster, that's a good thing. But when you're deadlocked into a roster and it's below level, that's not great. And with new ownership, I can see a full overhaul coming before the contracts kick in. Originally, it was just going to be Drew or Porzingis shipped off, as I said before. But with the Tatum injury and other question marks surrounding this team, I wouldn't be shocked if it went further than that. Listen, I don't think it's over for the Celtics. Just yet, at least. This is year 2 with this specific core of players. In year 1, they won a championship in dominant fashion by dog-walking the entire NBA. And in this most recent season, they suffered from 2 all-time bad shooting performances that caused them to give away 2 straight 20-point leads after being the favorites for almost the entire season. Even if this series resulted in a loss, they still can win a championship with this roster. Well, they can if Tatum goes back to being Tatum. Top 5, face of the league talks, Tatum. That's why it'll be really tough to keep this core together. Because of that if. It's a very big one, a massive one. And looking at Tatum writhing in pain with what looks to be a long-term injury makes it asinine to knot yourself into this squad. Not because the depth is bad, or it's structured poorly, or because it's chock full of playoff droppers. It's primarily because of one person, one stain on this roster. One person who's consistently failed the Celtics, their teams, and their fans. Jaylen Brown. I don't think disappointment is a word that represents how bad Jaylen Brown has been as of recently. 23 points on 35% shooting, 20 points on 34% shooting, 19 points on 38% shooting, and 20 points on 43% shooting. This is Jaylen Brown's stats this series. He's doing all of that while averaging 3.5 turnovers too. Jaylen Brown has been putrid in these playoffs, and probably would be one of the reasons this core gets split up. He is a very expendable piece. A championship level squad cannot have an unreliable second option. But that's what Brown has been. And look, I know what you may say. Brown got a Finals MVP last year. He was really good in the playoffs last year, and slandering him is unjust. And yes, while that may be true, through the playoffs last season, Jaylen Brown did show the ability to be a dominant second option, and since he has shown the ability to perform at that level, it makes sense for the Celtics to keep him despite the question mark. That should be the plan. Well, until you look at his price tag. Oh my lord. Jaylen Brown's Supermax deal puts his salary at an average of almost $60 million. That restrictive salary for someone who has a plethora of instances where he has not been good in the postseason
and has let the Celtics down
is not a retainable deal at all. We do not know how Jayson Tatum will come back, and maybe you could have gotten away with this form of playoff dropping when Tatum was 100%, but with his Achilles injuries putting question marks all over his future, retaining Jaylen Brown, who is not a consistent second option and will deadlock this roster into their current state, would be foolish. I think the Celtics will prioritize flexibility this offseason. With their future being in question with Tatum's injury, that's their only real option. And depending on how Tatum turns out, I think they'll build further from there. The thing is, Jaylen Brown doesn't fit that mold. A player with question marks on a really expensive contract, they can't afford to keep him around. I think he will be the first to go this offseason. The Celtics need a new second option, and depending on how Tatum's injury goes, they might need a first option too. I think cutting Jaylen Brown out of this team and getting his contract off the books gives them the flexibility to chase someone who's actually consistent. Now, I don't want to get crazy here. Maybe they could promote someone from their team already, like Derek White or something. Maybe they could pick one up in free agency. Or maybe, just maybe, may sound a little crazy here, they could trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Oh my god, how bad would that be if they traded for Giannis? Whatever. Regardless, with the injury and what looks to be another failure of a season in Boston, changes will be made this offseason. Changes that could shake up the entire NBA. It'll be interesting to see how the Celtics approach this, what they'll do. If they have faith in Tatum, they might just get a second option and ride it out. If they're concerned about his injury, they may look for a player alongside of him. The injury is so fresh that there's no real idea what they're gonna do. I do know this. It will be entertaining. There's so many offseason implications for the Celtics that could potentially reshape not only the Eastern Conference, but the entire NBA. At minimum, Jaylen Brown will most likely be going to a different team. That alone has huge implications. And when you consider the possibility of who they're signing to their team or trading for, if it's Giannis, then again, the landscape of the entire NBA could be shaken up. And it's all because of one little slip.